Good evening, people of Earth. Jim Peters here. Welcome to the second episode of Jim Peters at Night. I want to thank Murray Sabrin, my guest last night, the economist extraordinaire, for our first show. It was great, went great. It was a wonderful interview. God, that guy's got a lot to say. If you didn't see it live, and most of you didn't, I don't think, uh, go back to our archives on YouTube and give it a watch. He knows more about the economy than anybody I know, and actually way more than Paul Krugman. Don't even listen to that stuff. That's bullshit. Last night we had a little bit of a technical problem. We're broadcasting this on 8 networks simultaneously. We did not show up on Rumble. We figured it out. Second time this has happened, but we're assuming we're going to be on Rumble tonight. And also, if you're watching this on Rumble, I'd appreciate it. I said the same thing last night, but none of you heard it. If you could follow us on Rumble, I'd really appreciate it, because once we get 20 followers, we can change the URL of our channel page to Jim at Night. To right now, it's just a string of numbers. So the only way you'd really find it is by going to our website. And I'm going to talk about that too. Our website is jimatnight.com. That's NIGHT. And you see this thing down here below? You see it right there. So you can hold on. I got a little bit of focus problem here. I just noticed this. You can call us there. Now, here's the deal. This is the first talk show in American history, apparently. Talkers Magazine said that's taken video phone calls, and only video phone calls. You can't call us on the regular telephone. Well, you can. There's a number down here. See that? You can leave us a voicemail at 408-458-5088, or you can text us there too. I don't look at the text during the show. I don't look at the chat. We have chat going on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I don't look at the chat during the show either. I got my hands full, okay? But you can, if you want to send me a message, I'll check all this stuff after the show. You can also email me at night@jimpeters.net. That's on our website too. There's a page. I'm going to bring this up. There's a page. I'm not for you to see, but for me to see. There's a page on our website called Contact, where you can all the different ways you can contact us. Here's where you can see the show: YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Twitch, Odyssey, Telegram, and Trovo. And on the front page of our website at jimatnight.com. You can watch the live shows up there too. Big YouTube player. You can do that. I'd appreciate it if you do that tonight. We don't have a guest tonight. I'm just going to talk, which I'm very good at doing, as those of you know. There's a lot of stuff that happened today. Hold on. Oh, one more thing too. So we're also live on Podbean Live. If you have a Podbean app, actually you can do this on their website too. It's at podbean.com/live-list, if I'm right. Or if you just go to the front page and go to Discover, we're broadcasting live audio only. That turns into an audio only podcast. You know, like I told the people at Talkers Magazine, this was originally supposed to be just a podcast. But as we got into this, I wanted to do it live, and I realized, right now it's way easier to do live video than live audio. Who would have thunk that, huh? But it's true. You'd think that technology-wise, it would be easier just to do the audio, but it isn't. I know it's kind of crazy, but yeah. So once we discovered that, and then we realized, well, we can take video phone calls, and no one's ever done it before. So the deal is to call us on your via video on your desktop, laptop, even on your phone. We can do the camera on your phone. The front-facing camera. You go to jimatnight.com/call. You have to go to that webpage because there's a button on that webpage that you press to get into our virtual green room. So you don't need any special software because you're using a Google Chrome web browser, and that's the only real criteria requirement here, because all the software you need is built into that, all behind the scenes. So you go to jimatnight.com/call with your Google Chrome web browser. Unless this is all explained on that page. If you're on an iPhone or iPad, you use the Safari web browser built into that device. Anything else, including a Mac desktop, you use the Google Chrome web browser, and then you press the button. There's screenshots on that page for you to see how this works. You press the button and you end up in a preview screen where you can check out your camera, you can check out your microphone, and a couple of the little things. Then you end up in the queue, and uh, I will anoint you by putting you on the air. Got that? That's the way this works. Now I'm going to talk for a little while. Let me also explain one other thing how the way this works too. Normally on these shows, the show's in 3 parts. Usually I will do this monologue. Like today, this is the only part because we do not have a guest. We have a guest on for tomorrow and Thursday and Monday too. But right now tonight we do not have a guest. We're just getting started. Second show, you know. So I do my monologue. Then we have the guest on, featured guest, and then for the third part of the show, I take your phone calls. That's the way this is going to work. Now I realize this video phone-in thing is completely new. Besides the fact not a lot of people are watching this right now, it's never been done before, and I know people have a reticence to do something that's brand new that they've never done or that no one else has ever done. So I know it's going to be a while before we get phone calls on a regular basis. I know that, but that's the idea going forward. As a matter of fact, we do the show Monday through Thursday live at 11 p.m. Eastern. I think at some point the Thursday show will be just phone calls and nothing else. We'll take your phone. By the way, I don't care what you talk about. I don't even care if you're watching the show. You don't even have to be watching to call in. If you just want to call in, just go to the page and call in. It's Monday through Thursday, and you're in bed in Montana and it's 9:30. You want to call? Just go right ahead. Seriously, I don't care. We'll talk. We'll talk about anything you want. If you're, and this is important too. You might, if you're spearheading a project or working on something you want people to know about, you want to promote, go ahead, call. Really, I don't care. We'll put you on the only thing we won't put you on the air for is nudity. We won't. No pictures of your bits. I can't do that. I personally would find that entertaining. I would like to make fun of how small your bits are, but we can't do that because our distributors will cut us off. So there's that. So, and once again, like I said, if you're on Rumble, please follow us. I'd really appreciate it because we need 20 followers to change the URL. Okay, what's going on in the world today? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. So, okay, I don't know if you folks notice this. There's this concept called, well, you know about this, Christmas in July. You know about that. And I saw a few things in July. July just ended. This is August 1st. We did our first show on July 31st. It's August now, so I don't know if you folks were looking at this in the last couple weeks, but yeah, there's people doing Christmas in July shit. Okay, funny, ha ha ha. Good time for a sale. Now it's August 1st. Now I saw on television this afternoon at least 2, if not more, ads for actual Christmas shit. Apparently, after Christmas in July, now Christmas starts in August. This is bullshit. I do not want Christmas to start in August. Christmas starts the day after Thanksgiving. That's when Christmas starts, and you guys got to just cut it out. I know you're trying to make money for your firms and all that sort of stuff. This is crap. We're not going to this. No, I'm not going there. But there's nothing that happened today, too, on August 1st. Today, 42 years ago today, YouTube. No, not YouTube. What I'm started. MTV started on midnight. I think it was a Wednesday. I can't remember. On August 1st, 1981, the very first video played. Oh, this is pretty well known. Video Killed the Radio Star by, oh God, I'm not going to forget the name of those people. What's the name of that group? But at any rate, yeah, I'll tell you this. This is the part that's the real trivia. The second video played was Pat Benatar, You're Gonna Run. That was the second video played. Now, if you might not even know who Pat Benatar was. I was not only alive at this point, I'm 67. This is my retirement job, the show. I was producing records in Los Angeles. And so I didn't see MTV till a year later. That day it started, it was only available in New Jersey. That's it. There was only a few thousand homes that had cable in New Jersey had it. And you have to understand, too, this was a new thing because CNN launched in, was it July of 1980? And they were pretty much the first dedicated cable channel. Up to then, everything was rebroadcast stuff. There was being funneled through cable, and CNN started, and they set the trend. 24-hour news channel, which became wildly successful, and nobody thought it would. Nobody. Everyone thought Ted Turner was nuts. And I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes here. He wasn't nuts, but maybe he was. There's different ways to look at this. Because there's not enough news to fill 24 hours. So now what they did at the beginning, it was basically like what headline news evolved into. And that was this, half-hour newscast they did live over and over again. And they adjusted it and added stuff to it as the day went on, as more news was created, and they dropped stuff. So that was the original concept. There was none of this stuff about about 24 hours a day. Opinion. There were no opinion shows at all. It was straight news. And I don't know if you people, follow history, but their big break, if you want to call it that, came during the first Gulf War. And what was that, 92, I think it was? That's when, it's 12 years later, that's when the value of 24 hours cable news became evident, because they basically broadcast the news, the war live. And you can go back another, let me see, I'm doing some math in my head, 15, 20 years, the Vietnam War, which was the first war that was basically televised for all practical purposes. It was on delay. They didn't. There's very little videotape. Basically, they shot on film and had the film hurry rush developed, and then by satellite it was broadcast, sent to New York, that sort of stuff. So you saw the war about a day behind what was actually happening, but you did see it, and it was carnage. It was terrible. And 55,000 Americans lost their lives in that war. And basically, I mean, in retrospect, for no good reason. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue the vagaries of whether we should have went or not. There's still a lot of people, not a lot, I think they're a minority now, who think that that war was worth fighting. But the thing is, we started a pattern. A lot of people say we started in the Korean War, and it's still running, about the fact that we basically have what Eisenhower, in his parting remarks as president, warned us about the dangers of the military industrial complex. It's very profitable for a whole bunch of people to go to war. It's very profitable. And that's why we seem to have wars that never end. And now the ironic part of this is that Trump, an outsider, wasn't so much him coming in per se, but as being an outsider, he basically woke a whole bunch of people up to the fact that maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. And I'll say why we shouldn't do it, because people die. That's why. That's the thing that nobody seems to really care about, or it figures into this equation. Yeah, a lot of people make a lot of money, and also a lot of people die. Now we have wars down to such a science, at least here in the United States, that when we go to conflict, very, very few people die. I mean, I think in the last Iraq war, it's like we lost a few dozen people. Was it 105 or something? I mean, and the Iraqis lost 100,000. It was mind-boggling how disparate the difference was. We kicked their butt, basically. If you're talking about the body count, which is in the war, basically, I mean, I hate to say it, that's how you keep score, basically. So we have a bunch of people here who are trying to stop this whole thing about the military industrial complex. The other thing they're trying to stop is the deep state, the bureaucracy running America. I mean, I just reading recently, and I can't remember what it was, a GOP congressman who's talking about some guy they invited from some not division, what do you call it? Some bureaucracy in the government to come testify in front of Congress. And the guy said, well, first of all, he didn't even show up. He sent his deputy, and he said the deputy basically laughed at them, because he said they knew that it doesn't matter what they say, it doesn't matter what they do, there's nothing anybody can do about any of it. None of these people ever lose their jobs. And this is this congressman talking. He brought this up too. None of these people ever lose their jobs. None of them are ever punished for doing the wrong thing. It just, the bureaucracy just goes on and on and on. And at this point, it's so enormous that they essentially run the government. Now, Trump has proposed this too. On Monday, we're going to have a guy here named Tim Conaway, who's a longtime journalist, and he's running for president of the United States. Now, okay, he might not have a big chance of winning. He's also not running under any party affiliation too, but he's trying to make a point. And the point is that not only does the bureaucracy have to stop, And not only do we need term limits for people in Congress, we need term limits for people working for the federal government. And he's right. Case in point, Anthony Fauci. So Fauci was the head of that division, the infectious diseases division of the NIH for 37 years. Now, I want to point this out here. It's not that he worked there for 37 years. He was the head of it for 37 years. He ran that division. He had the same job for 37 years. He ended up getting paid more than the president of the United States. He was the highest paid person in the entire U.S. government. Now, there's 4 million, I think now there's more. I'll get to that in a second, too. There's 4 million non-military people who work for the federal government of the United States. 4 million. He was on the top of the pile. The president was second. The president gets paid $400,000 a year, and when he retired, I think Fauci was getting paid $435,000, I think. It was very lucrative. This guy had this job forever. He's 80 years old. Yeah, okay, he looks great for an 80-year-old person. He does. He looks fantastic. I admit it. But why? So now and then Mitch McConnell turns up in a press conference and he just freezes. I don't know if people saw the video of that. I actually should have clipped it and shown it. I should show it to you. He freezes just standing there. They have to walk him back to his office. I mean, and he's joking about it later on. Ha 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 ha. The President Biden's joking about the fact he's falling down. Ha ha ha. This is not getting fun. This is not funny anymore. This isn't. All right, so I was talking about MTV lunch today. Now, why is that important to me? Because we're launching this show. This is the second episode. And, I don't know if you folks have figured this out, but nobody really knows what to call this. Okay, Joe Rogan does a podcast and he does it on video. All right, fine. So it's both audio and video. This is when people ask me what this is, I tell them it's a live video podcast, but that's kind of an oxymoron. Podcasts generally aren't live. This is, it's on video. It's basically a television show. I mean, we're not going to, I hesitated to actually do this thing with Podbean live. I'm a radio guy at heart. This was originally supposed to be an audio only show. And I thought, well, okay, let's, we'll have a feed so that the people on the podcast thing can hear it. But to be perfectly blunt, if you're in your car and you want to listen to the show but not watch it, you're probably just going to go to Rumble and YouTube and find the video and play the audio through your car stereo. That's probably what's going to happen. I know that. In my previous job, we did shows we were broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio, which is a fine service, except, well, if they don't have an app, there's that. And also, no one's gonna, you hook your phone up to the car, and there you go, and la-di-da. So nobody really knows. There's no name for what I'm doing here yet, which I find kind of interesting. But I'm going to segue here, and it sounds like I'm getting off track, but I'm not. I'm going to tie all this up together at the end. Greg Gutfeld was talking about that. So, if we're only 2 shows into this, but excuse me. I'm a big UFO guy. Just to explain this before, I explained it yesterday. I've been telling anybody who listened for 30 years that the UFO, the extraterrestrials, not the extraterrestrials, that the UFO crashes are real. And these 3 guys get in front of Congress this last week, and they basically said under oath, 3 highly qualified, highly respected individuals said, we have the crashed spacecraft, we have dead alien bodies, the government's hiding them, and the government's been hiding them for years. And so then people say, well, Jim, how did you know? And my answer to that is government documents. This was nothing. I'm not talking about my feelings. I'm not talking about speculation. I'm not talking about any sort of gut feeling I had that this was true. They're government documents that talk about this. And then the next question I always get is, well, if you saw them, how come the press doesn't report on this? And my answer to that is, well, that's a damn fucking good question. Why doesn't the press report on it? let me but so let me so Gutfeld was on a show last week on Friday, and he's talking about this too. He's talking about the fact that this should be the biggest story on the planet, and it isn't. It appears that nobody cares, but now look what's happened in the culture. Nobody seems to care about anything, except there's a small cadre of extreme liberals who hate Donald Trump with a passion, and that's all they care about. So Trump was indicted again today, third time, this time for inciting the riot at the Capitol on January 6th. This is going to go nowhere. Of all the legal shit that Trump has encountered so far, the only thing that has any sort of grain of truth to it, or possibly or legitimacy, is the document issue with Mar-a-Lago. They might get him on this. I mean, I don't know that he's guilty. He's innocent until proven guilty. I haven't seen all the evidence, but pretty much all the legal experts have said there's a possibility legitimate issue here. It's the first thing ever. This next thing. I mean, I'm watching the legal people on TV today, and also I know myself. I'm not a lawyer. I play one on TV, but this is bullshit. Legally, this is bullshit, and that's what everybody says too. They're not going to get him on this at all. Now a jury in Washington D.C. might convict him because it's the single most partisan place to find a liberal jury in America. I mean, those people in Washington D.C. they convict a whole bunch of shit that ends up getting overturned, not just by the Supreme Court, but just like appellate courts, because they're just they can't think straight. I'm just going to put it straight out right there. So Trump is indicted today, and there's another thing I have to point out too, and this is the other thing that a lot of the people pointed out, and that is it seems like whenever anything happens to Biden, the next day something happens to Trump. Have you noticed this? It's a pattern that's very hard to escape at this point. So my point is, all right, we have this UFO thing, which might be the single biggest story in the history of the world. Nobody seems to care. We have a president who's actually at this point, I think they've proved corruption. The man, he's going to go down in history as the most corrupt president we've ever had, and it's kind of nobody seems to care about that either. Although that's the reason Trump is doing so well in the polls. Chuck Todd said on his stupid weekend show on NBC, he said, "Well, Trump is not going to be able to win, and it'll be too late before the Republicans figure that out." And I'm going to sit here and tell you, Chuck, I think you're wrong, because no matter what, first of all, they being the Democrats, they know that if they keep indicting Trump, they're basically they want to ensure his nomination because they think they can beat him. Only problem is their president is coming down at the same time, and I think there's a possibility that even if Joe and Donald are the two nominees, I think Joe might beat him this time, because I don't think Biden's going to be looking very good in the next few months. On top of that, and he's not the only person who's talked about this either. Murray Sabin on a show last night, he talked about the fact that he predicts there's a high possibility, a probability, that in the first half of next year we're going to have a depression. No, I'm sorry, recession. A recession. So take that into account too. And he's not the only person who's predicting this. Murray's been predicting that for 3 years, and he's always been right. He hasn't changed the goalposts or the timeline. He's always said it will be the last half of 23 or the first half of 24. So that's what he's still sticking to that. He thinks we're going to have a full-fledged recession. So my point is, the president is corrupt. Nobody seems to care about that. Now there's another story that came out today about the fact that there's a biolab in California stuck in some warehouse somewhere that was doing all sorts of research, and it turns out that it's owned by a Chinese firm that doesn't have an office in Beijing at the address that they say they do. It's all bogus. And what does that remind you of, huh? COVID. This astonishes me. I've thought for a long time about writing a book about the fact, and I feel very strongly about this. I think the difference between the two political parties is not so much political as it is behavioral. I think there's personality issues. I'm starting to see. I went out today. I went to Target. I did some errands. I'm starting to see all of a sudden. I'm starting to see more and more people again wearing masks. And then on Sunday, this weekend, I'm at a family gathering, and one of my uber liberal friends is bragging about the fact that her and her husband have had all 6 of the COVID shots. 6 of them. 6. I had the very first 2 vaccinations. The first 2 shots that made up the original vaccination. Okay, fine. I'm vaccinated. That's great. All right. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, they say, "Well, you need another shot." And I'm thinking, well, let me see. I'm 67 years old. I've never had more than 1 shot, or, if you're gonna count them together, 2, for anything in 1 year ever, ever. And I just happened to be I got a heart condition. I had a heart surgery a couple years ago. I had to be meeting with my heart, and I meet with my doctors now regularly, like, regularly being, like, every 3 months, basically. So, I'm visiting my doctor, and I said, to Laura, I said, "What's the deal with this?" I said, "How come I need another booster shot? I've never needed one before." And she said to me, "Well, Jim, you know something?" She said, "We're wondering the same thing, we being the medical profession." She said, "We don't know either." And when she said that, well, then I realized, holy shit, this is all bogus. And of course it is. Now, the statistics that have come out have said that this is mind-boggling. More people who had the booster shots got COVID than people that didn't. Did you hear me right? That's what the statistics are now. More people who got the COVID booster shots got COVID than the people who didn't get them. In other words, it was the exact opposite of what was intended. The shots don't work. Now, I'm not going to sit there. I don't have enough evidence to tell you that they're dangerous. There are people that will tell you that they cause blood clots and all that sort of shit. I don't actually know. That might be anecdotal evidence that we basically is not statistical. So I'm not going to say that, but I do know we know they don't work. We know that. Well, then why did you get that shot? Oh, you got that. Oh, because they need the pharmaceutical companies, they need the money. That's why you got that shot. That's the reason. Holy shit. That's great. Good for you. So this biolab in California, they're owned by a company in Beijing that does not have an office. And then that reminded me of another thing too. I know folks have heard this, and this is what I want to do here. I want to fill you in on shit that falls between the cracks in the news. So the last time BLM basic, I don't know what they were filing for bankruptcy with Black Lives Matter Incorporated, the nonprofit organization. They were filing for bankruptcy. Problem, they don't have an office. They have an address they list as their office, but people have gone there. There's no office in that building. Not only in this particular suite that they talk about, which I've read doesn't even exist. The suite doesn't. There's not. They're in an office. They have no office. And so you're wondering what happened to that $20 million that the 3 founders ran off with and bought those giant mansions with. You're wondering about that? It was all a grift. Who would have thought that? It's like I still remember. I'm sitting talking. I'm sitting watching the riots on television in 2020. Which started here in Minneapolis, and I can't remember what city it was. And all of a sudden, I see a banner that says "Black Trans Lives Matter," and I'm thinking, what? What? Because the thing is, I know this. There's no trans people in America. Now there are. What I'm talking about here is that I'm not saying there are no trans people. Statistically, there are no trans people. It's like way under 1 out of every 200 people. I don't know how they got this figure, but a few weeks ago, the New York Times said that 0.46% of the American public is transsexual. I don't know where they got that. I think they pulled it out of their butt. That's what I think. But even that's less than 1 out of every 200 people, which was my highest guess. So I'm guessing. I told a friend of mine I was working with at the news agency, I said, I don't think there's more than 10,000 Black transsexual people in the United States. And why are they putting this on? It's like, what? Huh? There, everything's a distraction. We are being constantly distracted by everything that's important. And meanwhile, the price of your food is going up. You're not going to be able to use an air conditioner anymore. All this crap that the World Economic Forum basically says you got to do because you're going to have to be a good citizen because you will own nothing and you'll be happy. That's basically what they're sending us to. And this is bullshit. So Trump was indicted today, and my point is, yeah, Hunter Biden's business partner went in front of Congress or a congressional committee behind closed doors yesterday. Geez, and what are the chances of that happening? Have you noticed that when there's errors, none of the errors and none of the coincidences go the Republicans' way? None of them. Now people are starting to figure this out. Whether it's enough people to give Donald Trump the election, I don't know. But I will tell you this, everyone said the charges against Trump basically involved what he said and not at the rally, because the thing is yeah, they never meant it's been Jack Smith, the guy who's prosecuting this, and I don't believe he did this because it's public. This is highly public information. So I mean, everyone says this is flimsy as hell. But at any rate, he mentioned parts of Trump's speech at the rally before they stormed the Capitol, but didn't mention the part where Trump said, "I would like you all to peacefully and patriotically go to the Capitol and make your voices heard." He left that out. Yeah, right. Okay, sure. But Trump is not, Trump. One of the it was Andrew McCarthy, I think, on Fox News said that the problem with Trump is that he truly believes that the election was stolen from him. He's not just saying this shit; he actually believes it. Now, I'll tell you, I do too. I have a certain amount of, I won't say proof. It's not proof. It's evidence that has basically been overlooked that I'm going to bring up here because I've been chided for this, but I'm standing by my theory, and that is I've spent my entire life in the entertainment business. Okay, I know crowds. That's what I know. I know audiences. I know when people turn out. Here's a really good example. Uh, it's it's been implied that Trump didn't think he was going to win the election in 2016 until the very end, and this is what happened. The night before the election, he did a rally in Seattle that apparently went quite well, and they're going to fly back to Washington for the election day. And apparently Trump said to somebody on the airplane, where are we flying over? Is there anywhere we can stop? One more thing. Said Minneapolis, where I'm at here. So it's 10 p.m. Or it's 10 p.m. in Minnesota. That would mean it'd be 8 p.m. in Seattle. They sent from Trump's airplane. They sent a press release out to the conservative radio stations in Minneapolis and saying, "Look, Trump," and they arranged for this. Trump is going to be at a hangar at 3 a.m. in the morning. 3 a.m. And also, it started to rain. It's pouring rain. And on 5 hours' notice, in the pouring rain at 3 o'clock in the morning, 26,000 people showed up. Do you get that? 26,000 people showed up in the pouring rain at 3 a.m. with 5 hours' notice. And that's when the Trump team apparently looked at each other and said, we might actually win this. That's when they realized it. And this is what I'm getting at here too. You can tell, especially toward election day, when it comes to these political contests, about who's the obvious audience favorite. Basically, I'm mixing entertainment and politics here, but it's kind of the same deal. It is. So I don't know if you folks know this, but when Joe was running for president in 2020, other than one exception, 5 days before the election in Pennsylvania, where he drew 900 people, he did not draw more than 200 people to any campaign event. And I'm actually being generous there. A lot of people said it was actually less than one. He didn't draw more than 100. But I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. He didn't draw more than 200 people to any campaign event during the entire campaign. And there's memes online that are talking about this, meanwhile, Trump, and I'm not making this figure up, drew an average of 20,000 people at every campaign event. 20,000 versus 200. So people say, well, you don't understand, Jim. People didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. And I know that's true. I know the 40% of the country hates his guts. I understand that. But I don't buy the disparity. I don't believe that 40% of the public that hates Trump's guts ended up making up 81 million votes. I just don't. I can't see it. I can't. And I think Trump is right. I think that they screwed with the election count, and not only that, it depends how you define this. If you're talking about the difference between rigging and cheating, and the way this definition has gone down now is that rigging is changing the election rules so that people could vote in different ways. Cheating is when you actually screwed with the vote count. Now, I actually think there's about 3 or 4 counties in America where they actually did screw with the vote count. I think that, and that was enough to tip the election. My proof is 1960, John F. Kennedy versus Richard Nixon. It's pretty much historically accepted now that Kennedy won the election, still one of the closest elections in American history, because not so much him or his campaign, his father bribed a bunch of people in Cook County in Chicago to change the vote count in Cook County. The election was so close. Changing Cook County changed Illinois, and changing Illinois put him over the top on the electoral count. One county basically made the difference. And then you go to 2000, where one county in Florida won the entire election for George W. Bush. If the election's close, it's actually not hard to do. You could screw with this. And then on top of that, and here's a legitimate point. This is verifiable and not contestable. At least a dozen states illegally unconstitutionally changed their voting laws to accommodate, supposedly, to accommodate COVID in 2020. At least 12. It depends on how you want to figure it. You can count up to 17, but at least 12 of them did. And Trump's contention was that those 12 states electoral counts should not have been counted, and he's right. They shouldn't have. Now, we got a problem in this country because we have no way to legitimately contest a presidential election. You can't. There's no mechanism to do that. It's not built into the Constitution, and it's never been decided by the Supreme Court. So what do? Basically, okay, the election was what it was. Excuse me. I'm picking my nose. The election was what, November 6th, was it? I can't remember. You basically have to the end of the year to figure out something to be able to adamantly prove that that something went hooey or wrong. The certification election is not the same day every year, but it's usually in the first 2 weeks of January. And of course this time was January 6th. So I'm with Trump. I actually think that that's right between those two things. And like I said, the thing about the unconstitutionality of those changes, that's verifiable. And I don't think you can't contest that. That's just true. That's all there is to it. I understand that a lot of people don't buy my thing about the fact that the vote count was screwed with. I understand, but I stick by my thing about the crowds. I think it's not proof, but it's ample evidence that something was very, very wrong. And it still is. It still is. I don't know if you know this. Joe doesn't draw anybody wherever he goes. I don't know what's happening in the last couple of weeks when he's on this freaking Bidenomics tour, which is just absolutely hilarious. I mean, they ruined the economy and they're continuing to ruin the economy. They say everything's going great. And he said, look at the unemployment numbers. Yeah, look at the unemployment numbers. We were in COVID. Nobody had a job. It's like, it's just bullshit. But at any rate, I get mad. Nobody's like I said, I can't speak for the last few weeks, but up till recently, nobody's come out to see Joe. Nobody. He was in Lancaster, Louisiana, at some factory, and where they were supposed to have a public meet and greet. And I think this was October of 21, if I'm right. Nobody showed up. Nobody. Zero. Nobody from the public showed up. Now, I know that the people in the White House seem to be largely incompetent, his advanced people, but come on, really seriously? And typically, when Joe goes to any sort of public event, like at Ohio State University, 30 people showed up to see him. I mean, this has been going on forever. I cannot reconcile the fact that 30 people are showing up to see the president of the United States and they got 81 million votes. I can't. I just can't. That's all there is to it. But here's the problem with all this. When I'm talking about the fact that people don't care, the reason people don't care is because of the media in the United States. And this has been, and using the UFO thing for an example, and like I said, I'm coming full circle here. Circle. This has been actually going on for 50, 60 years. Except now we're noticing it. That's the only difference. There's no difference in the way the press has been covering anything. Now the press has changed greatly because now we have a huge amount of alternate media, if you want to call it that, which the show I suppose is part of that. We have podcasts, we have conservative radio shows, and this is the other thing. I'm a real obsessive student of talk media because I do this. Um, I don't know if you know this. Nobody listens to liberal talk radio. The reason there's no liberal talk radio is because every time they try it, it doesn't work. Nobody listens. That's the reason. The liberals that wanted to shut down conservative talk radio for years. But the problem is every time they mount some sort of competition, it doesn't work. Well, except for one exception. I'll give this guy credit. This Air America thing that happened about 20 years ago, that Al Gore was in charge of, believe it or not, something he ran. Look at this, and look how great this worked out. So, Al Franken, the comedian, he did a show on Air America that competed directly, same time slot with Rush Limbaugh live. That would be 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern time daily. And this did not get a lot of press, and that's interesting too, the fact that it didn't. But and I don't know if it's every, but in most of the cities where Al and Rush went head to head, Al beat him. Al beat Rush, which is like unbelievable. Now, you'd think with those sorts of ratings, you think, well, God, we got a great business going here. Well, they folded because they couldn't monetize it. Because I'm not kidding. Literally, these stupid liberals couldn't stop arguing about how they wanted to run their business. That's literally what happened. And they screwed it all up. Yeah, that's the only time I've ever heard of this working, and it hasn't worked since. There's no liberal talk radio because nobody's interested in listening to it. That's the reason. So I don't know. You talk to your liberal friends, ask them. I have no idea why this is the case. I don't. But my point is, there's the press does not seem to care about, and they care about what they care about. That's the thing. And if you know these people, and I've been working with them for 50 years, and yeah, I'm 67, so yeah, I've been working with them for 50 years, like going back to teenagers. Um, they're all, first of all, they're all exactly alike personality wise. There's no imagination whatsoever. They can't they can't extrapolate anything beyond their nose, nothing. And you would think that for people who are in it for the facts, that would be a good thing. But the fact is, they can't even make common assumptions or reasonable assumptions about what they're reporting, which I I, I don't. Excuse me. I don't know what to say about that. I don't. But I know it's true. There was something going on in the 70s called Project Operation Nightingale. You can look this up. This is common knowledge online. Operation Nightingale is the CIA paid 400 of the most prominent journalists in the United States. These are the most prominent journalists. The people who were on television, writing the big bylines of the newspapers. I mean, it's the 70s, so you only had 3 television networks. That was it. There's no cable television, nothing. Yeah. We used to live like that. And the newspapers were the primary source of information. 400 of the most prominent journalists, and they paid them to either report stories incorrectly or not report them at all. If the CIA did not want a story reported, they would tell this network of people. They would say, "We don't do not write a story on this," and they wouldn't. And so you're talking about the press being, unbiased here in the United States. Well, that's not bias. That's corruption. They're getting paid. And some people think this is still running. Now, supposedly it isn't, but all right, let me give you an example here. This is not the press, but still, I think, I just want to point out here, this is entirely speculation. This is my opinion. So I'm not, you just take it for what it's worth. I think somebody's paying Chris Christie to run for president. I think he's getting paid to do it because his only single function so far in the campaign has been trashing Donald Trump. He does not seem to be interested in winning or putting out any sort of policy proposals or anything. His only function is to trash Donald Trump. I think somebody's paying him to do it. It's just like Christine Baisley Ford, who accused Brett Kavanaugh of of sexual misconduct. Um, it's pretty obvious now. Once again, my opinion. Once again, I just want to speculate this, but it's pretty obvious to me that somebody paid her to do it. Or what actually happens in these cases here. I think this is the way this works. So the parties and I don't think the Republicans are above this either. The parties, they have a big database of people, supporters, and they look through the well, let me see who was where at what time. Like who could we um, credibly get to accuse this guy of sexual misconduct, and they go through a database and they find a few names, and they go to these people, and they're good Democrats, and I hate to say it, women seem to be more easily kowtowed than men. I'm sorry, I'm going to say that I think that's true, and they go and say, look, you would help your party and the country if you would do this, and they talk these women into doing this. The thing with Blasey Ford is that she named 4 witnesses that she said saw and were aware of the sexual assault, and all 4 of them said, we don't even know what you're talking about. And one said later that somebody came to her. She didn't know who it was. She didn't know who this person was, and offered her a very large sum of money to change his story. Well, I don't think Christy Baisley Ford has that money. It's like whose money is that? Who's so I think this is still going on. It turns out the press in this country cannot be relied on right now for anything. And my real point is, and I hate to say this, I think, like I said, I think this has been ongoing for a long time, for decades, but we just haven't noticed until now. We didn't notice until Donald Trump came and upset their apple cart that 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 things aren't as they seem. So it's going to be interesting to know what happens here. It's like there's a distinct possibility. I don't think it's possible. It's probable, but possible that Trump could actually be jailed before the election next year. And at this point, I mean, I think he is on his way to getting the nomination. I mean, right now he's over 50% in the polling against all the other Republican candidates. I suppose something could happen. Well, the other thing is, you know, it's been speculated that if Trump said, "Well, I will get out of the race if you drop the charges," they probably would, because this is the point. They're not so much trying to smear him, and they're not that stupid. They know that every time they charge him, more and more Republicans are going to get on board. That's kind of the martyr syndrome. But like I said, I think they're playing this wrong. I do, because Joe is going to go down in history as the most corrupt U.S. president we've ever had. There's no doubt about that at this point. And mark my words. Okay, I'm saying, all right, if you want to run an impeachment, there's 2 things they haven't proved yet. So far, they have not proved that any of these shenanigans that happened with Joe and Biden and all these payments from all these oligarchs and foreign countries, they haven't proved that any of them happened while Joe was president. So some people might think that's important. I don't myself, but I understand there's a legitimate thing there. And the second thing is, what is the second thing? Let me see if I can. What's the second thing? Okay, yeah. Well, had a little brain fart. I gotta get a little sound. Someone said I should have a sound effect here when I have a little brain fart and can't. Okay, so that's oh shit, God. All right, I think we got to give this up. I want to finish my point. What is my point? Hold on. My point is that he's the most corrupt. Oh, I know what my point is. My point is I don't think they need to prove any more corruption. I think they've done enough. There's already enough. I don't know if any of this is a smoking gun per se, but taken in total, it's right. This guy sold out the country, and that's actually the problem. He's literally making money by selling his influence. And then you look at all the decisions, especially about China, that are made that seem so totally ludicrous, and you wonder why. Why is that? Because Joe's protecting his buddies. I mean, this guy, I mean, I can't point out the irony here. Donald Trump is universally hated by so many people, and they don't know why they hate him. They can't tell you. Like I read a bunch of tweets about the fact people are overjoyed about the fact he got indicted today, and somebody said, "Well, come on, he's a traitor." Oh, well, what does he do? What? How has he done that? The guy ran the economy like a top. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he did a really good job running the country. I have a very liberal friend of mine who said, and I can't understand this. He said that he actually didn't have any trouble with Trump's policies or how his administration ran the country, but he hates the guy's guts. He said, "I never vote for him ever." Well, are we auditioning the best friend? Is that what we're doing? Is that the idea here? You know, because even I don't know if I want to be Trump's friend. I don't know that. I mean, yeah, he says a bunch of shit. He can throw people under the bus. He can do that. He can do that stuff. He is maybe not a nice man, but the fact of the matter is, the presidency is now, because of this giant bureaucracy this bureaucratic boat you have to steer, has become such an enormously difficult job that I don't think it should matter. You know, this is terrible for me to say. I don't even know if you should matter the moral compass of the person doing it. It's just, can they do a good job? And you can make the same argument about Clinton. I'm a huge Bill Clinton fan. I think Clinton, in my mind, we've had only three great presidents since JFK, and that's Reagan, Clinton, and Trump. You know, Clinton's the only Democrat in like freaking forever who actually understood the economy. Murray Sabrin talked a little bit about that last night. You know, Hoover has been blamed for the Great Depression, and rightly so. But the thing is, FDR, in some ways, had gotten credit for solving it, and he didn't. He was just as bad. It went on for years. If those two guys, if either one of them had known what they were doing, they could have licked this in the bud in 2 years. And the the Great Depression went on for 8 years into um, FDR's presidency. You know, the modern economic theory seems to be completely counter to liberal ideology. It does. They don't. But Clinton was the exception. He got it. He understood, and that's the reason the country ran like a top. And and so the thing, you look at his wife. Just because you're sleeping with a genius doesn't make you a genius. That's what I've always said. Well, I tell you what. Tomorrow we have a special surprise guest, which I'm not going to mention right now. I'm not going to mention who it is. So you tune in and find that out. Thursday, Jazz Shaw from HotAir.com is going to be joining us. And I've said he's like my brother from another mother. He has the same gig I do at Hot Air that I have had previously, and that is he reports on both conservative news analysts, political analysis, and UFOs. That's what he does, and he's written a lot of UFO articles for a lot of even scientific publications. So he knows his shit when it comes to this. So we're going to talk to him about the fact that maybe Gutfeld's right. The biggest story in the world, and everyone's just yawning. But everyone's just yawning anyway. There's the impression that we can't do anything about this, and I hate to say it. I mean, I don't want to admit that that's true, but God, maybe it is. We can vote people out of office. We can do that, but other than that, I mean, we need somebody to dismantle the bureaucratic state in America. And the reason I'm such a Trump supporter at this point is I think Trump's the only person. He's not the only person who could do it, but because he's already been president, he'll know what to do on day one. That's the thing. So, all right, folks. I tell you what. We'll call it a night tonight. So you can call in some other time. Okay. You go to jimatnight.com. This is the URL right here. And from that page, you can call into the show. It's very simple. You need a device with a camera and a microphone, and you need a Google Chrome web browser. That's all you need. And you can call into the show. And we'll put you on the air. So we'll have a guest tomorrow. Will be a surprise? Jazz Shaw on Thursday. Tim Conaway, presidential candidate, joining us on Monday. And we're off to the races. It's my retirement job. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I really appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow. Wednesday, right. Thanks.